Namaste, welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is Kushalmehra. So, India and Canada are taking their relationship forward. In the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of movement as far as the India-Canada relationship is concerned. We've had visits from the Canadian side to India, where Minister Maninder has visited India with a delegation, small delegation. Started with Anita Anand, followed by Maninder. He met Piyush Goyal, who's the Commerce Minister in India, and Hardeep Puri, where they discussed oil and natural gas supplies to India. Then we had Mr. Jaishankar visiting Canada. That was for G20. With followed by Prime Minister Modi meeting Mark Carney. They also had, I think, a small meeting on the side where a lot of announcements were made, especially in the realm of critical minerals and uh, natural gas, along with others. Also, right now, we have a delegation from Ontario visiting India right now. I don't know the exact strength of the delegation, how many people are there, but I know Victor Federley is here, and I think he's scheduled to visit Delhi, Mumbai, and one more city. I forgot the name of the city. So, tons of things are happening on this, and there are some other peripheral issues. So, as always, I have Darshan Maharaja with me to talk about it. Darshan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
एकदम बढ़िया. आप तो ठंडी में, मैं तो बच गया.
You always run away.
Yes, whenever it goes cold, I run away. How do we start this? When Prime Minister Carney had taken over from Justin Trudeau, since then there was a very clear change in the way the liberal government, because it's still a liberal government for those who don't know. So it's only the face has changed. Justin Trudeau was the prime minister. Now Mark Carney is the prime minister. The the question that often gets asked by many people, whether in the media or outside, is that does the Liberal Party have any fundamental principles?
Yes.
Because they have taken a complete 180 on India.
No, they have a core principle of staying in power. Right? I mean, I admire them for their clarity of strategic mission. If you are in business and you have someone at the helm with this much clarity, then that company will go places, which is what they are doing. So, what I've heard, and this is all uncorroborated, but right from the time Prime Minister Trudeau resigned, and then there was a leadership race on, there were back channel communications between Mr. Carney at that time, he was Mr. Carney, and the Indian government. So, this cannot happen without the go ahead of the top brass in the party, including those who are behind the curtains. So they came to a conclusion that the days of staying in power with Justin Trudeau's appeal to a lot of voters were done. And they were going to need a pivot, 180 degrees turn. And they executed that ruthlessly. Now, their Prime Minister Carney and all his team are trying to sell this as something necessary to diversify away from the US. But even otherwise, if you look at the overall economic situation, uh, it was imperative for us to find new markets for the products that we have, which is mainly natural resources, although technology and know-how is also part of it, because once you are in the energy business, how it is intertwined with technology and know-how. So those are the things that we needed to sell, regardless of how much we are selling to the US. That may or may not go down, but irrespective of that, the rest of the export had to go up. And there are two main big potential customers for this globally. One is China, the other is India. two big economies. I think China is what, number two in the world, and India is number
India
four,
number four.
right? And India is growing at the highest rate, 7 point something percent. And between the two, for a country like Canada, India would be a more preferable choice. Although logistically China is closer from the Pacific coast, but in Canada we have that insurmountable problem of getting stuff to the Pacific coast.
Hmm.
Just today, I was at some place and I saw on the TV some First Nations band. The chief declared that the pipeline will never happen. So it's a protracted issue. There are too many angles to it, so we can maybe go into that later on. But the main thing is it is less difficult. I wouldn't say it is easier, but it is less difficult to get oil and gas products to the Atlantic coast and then ship it out to India from there, to the extent that we are selling to India. But for that, you need all these agreements in place and a formal structure to be there. Now, interestingly, this was a question that I had asked to conservative leader Pierre Poilievre on the very first day of the election campaign, because he
Mm-hmm.
was saying that he would get our oil and gas to the coast, and he would increase exports to Asia to reduce reliance on the US. And I said, well and good, but our relations with India are frozen. Good morning, Mr.
So
Poilievre.
let's play that. Let's play
Yeah.
that question. It is one of the worst non-replies I've heard in my life.
Mr. Poilievre, about selling our oil and gas to Asia. One major market would be India, but unfortunately, our relations with India are in the deep freezer. So, how would you bring the relations back to a level of being cordial, where we can avail of that market? And secondly, on track two on assisted dying, it's making a lot of people with disabilities and mental illnesses vulnerable. So, would you cancel that policy? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, after the lost liberal decade, we see that we can't export our goods to India or anywhere else. Why? Because we don't have an LNG plant. We can't. We have a free trade agreement with Europe, but we can't sell LNG or oil to Europe. Why? Because we don't have a pipeline to get it to the Atlantic, and we don't have export plants to ship it out. Same on the West Coast. We have no operating LNG export plants. Now, this might seem kind of specialized, but this is our single biggest export by far. 75% of our trade surplus is just oil and gas. So we are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that we are denying ourselves because liberal policy, radical liberal environmental policies block pipelines and LNG plants. I will repeal C-69, the No New Pipelines liberal law. I will grant rapid approval for LNG plants on both the West Coast and the East Coast. I'll create shovel-ready zones where they are pre-approved to go ahead. And giving the Liberals a fourth term in power after they've blocked all of these projects will only make it worse. What we need is a Canada First conservative government that brings change so we can sell these products overseas. For example, the National Bank estimates that if India were to replace its coal-fired plant increases with Canadian natural gas, it would reduce global emissions of greenhouse gases by 2.5 billion tons because gas is cleaner than coal. 2.5 billion tons is 3 times the emissions of all of Canada. That, to me, sounds like a much better way to fight climate change than impoverishing our people with the radical net zero agenda that led to the lost liberal decade.
Like, there is a famous adage in Hindi, वो एक मीम के फॉर्म में आती है. It is like, कहना क्या चाहते हो?
Hmm. Yeah. See, the
Like, what is
question
he
was
trying to
about
say?
question was about how would you sell oil to India, oil and gas.
Yeah, and how if the key in that would be how will you repair the damn relationship with the Indians?
Exactly. And he kept saying, repealing Bill 69. Well, repealing Bill 69 gets your oil and gas to the coast. My question is what happens from there on, right? And the second question about assisted dying, on which they had a very strong stance earlier that we will scrap it, he never answered at all. But that's beside the point here. So, he flubbed it very, very clearly. And, to this day, I'm asking myself why he would do that. Because I had given the opening to him on a silver platter. He could have articulated his position and been in the right place on that policy. But he didn't answer at all. Now,
Uh,
Prime Minister Carney understands all this, that, regardless of what happens with the US, even if, US goes back to normal tomorrow, he's going to need extra revenue to come in and GDP to genuinely go up, not by shenanigans, selling fake student visas and all, not by that. So, for the tremendous challenge that we have in Canada right now on the economic front, he is looking for all those markets. And therefore, see how fast these things have happened. I mean, you have observed it, how fast things have moved to the point where now the provincial governments have got into the act. Minister Vic Fedeli of Ontario is in India. Every day he's posting about I met this company and I met this delegation, and even Haldiram's, which is like a snack food company, right? So he has met them. Alberta Premier met the High Commissioner of India. So things are moving fast, and I'm happy for that. Anything that benefits Canadians, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, this was the joint statement at the G20 on November 23rd, where basically the leaders welcomed the adoption of that technology and innovation partnership, which was between Australia, Canada, and India. But the more important bit is 3. The leaders agreed to begin negotiations on a high ambition comprehensive economic partnership agreement aimed at doubling bilateral trade to US 50 billion by 2030. Both sides reaffirmed their long-standing civil nuclear cooperation and noted the ongoing discussions on expanding collaboration, including through long-term uranium supply arrangements. Basically, this is Saskatchewan uranium.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that even Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, in fact, I think it was around election or maybe before the election when I saw posts about him and former Prime Minister Harper being in India and meeting people. Now, Saskatchewan being in India can only be for 2 things. One is their agricultural exports, and the other is uranium.
Yeah.
So for Canada to move so fast on the front of uranium is something that took me by surprise. I was, expecting that they are talking about just the pulses and dals and lentils, but looks like they were talking about something far more consequential than that. Because Canada has kind of a history with India when it comes to nuclear technology and nuclear related stuff. After the first nuclear test in 1974 by India at Pokhran, Canada was miffed that we helped you with all this technology on the understanding that you would use it only for civilian purposes, and now you have taken it to military use. So for that ground to be covered so quickly is something that has taken me by surprise. Although it's good for both the countries, and especially because it's good for Canada, I am happy.
Yeah, so this was Minister Anand talking about it.
There is getting back into business with people we had gotten out of business for various reasons, but also it seems to be a direct re-engagement with the global South, some of the BRICS nations, with the obvious exception of Russia. I mean, what does this tell us about the direction this government wants to go in the hunt for capital and trading opportunities?
Well, the fundamental point that must be made in response to this question is that the global trading environment has fundamentally changed. Therefore, it is necessary for Canada as well to change its focus in terms of our foreign policy. The United States, of course, is also reordering its trading relationship. And in response, we are going to double non-US trade by 2035 in the next 10 years. And so the work to do that, of course, is diversifying supply chains and diversifying trading partners. We have trading relationships under multilateral agreements. We are working to leverage the capacity for Canadian investment through those trading agreements, and we are working on additional new partnerships. That $70 billion that you referenced in terms of the UAE investment pledge to Canada, that's absolutely significant. It will change the game, and especially in terms of the national projects and the budget that we were able to have passed in the House of Commons last week.
But like the human rights issues around some of these countries, India, China, the criticism of the UAE for funding a militia in Sudan.
So here's my bit. I want to talk about that last bit of question, like that they keep talking about this human rights issue. When will Canada realize that it does not have a bargaining chip on the table? Nobody cares.
I think the problem is that people are being too diplomatic. By people, I mean the other countries. Because the biggest human trafficking scam operation in modern history was just concluded by Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. We brought in upwards of 1 million people on fake promises. Everybody knew it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It was a human trafficking cum exploitation racket. But nobody has in polite company, you don't say this, especially when there are other stakes to balance against that. They are not, the other diplomats and other government officials are not looking to tell Canada off. And this is purely for domestic consumption. It's the folks at CBC and other MSM outlets in Canada that will keep hammering on this, because that is what they want to convey to their domestic audience. But I don't think Minister Anand or Prime Minister Carney or Minister Fideli of Ontario, when they go to discuss there, they are going to tell UAE that we are concerned about your human rights record. No way. So this is just something that we are fooling ourselves with, that we are lily white. No, we are not. I mean, you and I know the extent of dirt that is there just in that one area.
Yeah, but I just find it so stupid that the Canadian media actually has such a ridiculously low standard when it comes to these things, and they talk down to people. And this is the Canadian media. Then they have the nerve to talk about human rights and all that, and then they air this man, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. Like, kya hai yaar? Like, what? This man comes on CTV. He's come on CBC time and again. Okay. And look at the entire poster that he has in the back.
Yeah.
Na Hindi, na Hindustan, na Hindutva. Matlab, what nonsense. And these people, they have the gall to talk to other countries about human rights and decency and basic courtesy. Like, just get the hell out of here, yaar. See, you need India to do business. Yeah, ढंग से पैसे मांग यार. My whole point is, भाई देख भीख मांगने का तरीका ये नहीं है भाई. In fact, the only thing is India is being decent by not making them grovel right now. India is being decent.
Exactly. See, the biggest aviation-related terrorist attack before 9/11, Canada failed to even prosecute it properly.
Yeah, and then they talk about human rights. Like, what the hell, man?
No, the human rights of the families of those victims
clearly don't matter. Clearly don't matter.
I've met some of them. By the time I met the first one, it was 23 years after the tragedy in 2008. And the man started crying. his brother and brother's family got wiped out in that. He started crying. 23 years later, the man is like pushing 50 or something at that point. He started crying in front of me, and we had met for the first time. That is how deep that wound is. And not, bringing closure to all those thousands of people is a violation of human rights, in my view. But these guys, their thinking has stopped in the 1960s, where the rest of the world, half of it was still colonized and the other half was like absolute dirt poor, like India or China. People were dirt poor. There was constant threat of mass scale starvation. That is the level of poverty. And I remember some of that. See, 1965, there was a drought in the entire Indian subcontinent. Severe drought. It was called the drought of the century. Then 1966 was worse than that. And then 1967 was even worse than that. Ultimately, because Pakistan was an ally of the US, they got food aid, wheat. And then India also got later on, the last one, because by then Bangladesh was East Pakistan. So both those sections of the subcontinent got food aid. India was the last one to get. Okay, and they gave some kind of inferior type of wheat, which you could not, typically Indian roti you can break with your 3 fingers into a piece, whereas here you had to absolutely pull with 2 hands. But anyway, they gave that aid, for which everybody was grateful. But that is where Canadians' thinking is stuck, or at least these people in the institutions like media and academia, their thinking is stuck there. They think they are that far ahead of the rest of the world. No, I mean, look at China, look at their technological achievements. Look at India in space, or in high speed rail, or whatever. So they have not updated their software. They still think that they are light years ahead of these third world countries, and they are lily white, and therefore they can preachify. This is the Indian English. They can preachify to anyone. So that's how they are continuing, and they are increasingly out of touch with the ground reality on multiple fronts. Like the Canada's position vis-a-vis other countries, the whole equation has been rejigged thoroughly. Then the economic strength, the cultural impact, the impact of the diaspora of various countries, not just India. I'm not just talking about India. There are so many influential diasporas around the world. So all that software update has not happened in the institutions of Canada. So they feel that they are still high and mighty. They can preachify to anyone, point to anyone's faults, without realizing that if you point one finger at one person, then the other 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So that is where they are stuck. But I'm happy to see that Prime Minister Carney does not have that impediment. He is moving. What he should do, he's doing in terms of trade. I mean, he has even talked about increasing trade with China, because he knows that the economy is in a state where if we don't recover now, then we are done.
Yeah, I mean, after all, what options does he have as a prime minister when he clearly knows? But what bothers me the most is the stupidity of the Canadian media. Like, you have the Indian High Commissioner going on Rosemary Barton's show on apna CBC, and the questions Rosemary Barton is asking the High Commissioner in a 12-minute interview, you should be talking to the High Commissioner about trade. She's talking to him about foreign interference. And kudos to the Indian High Commissioner. I mean, he basically said कि भाई तुमको मतलब क्या कर रहे हो यार तुम लोग.
I saw Josh's podcast on that, and he pointed out that out of 12 minutes, 9 minutes were spent on that, foreign interference. And the interesting thing is, and I don't think anybody has pointed this out, that the whole talk about foreign interference started with CCP interference in Canadian elections.
It has completely disappeared. Now only India only interferes in Canada. Nobody else does.
Yeah, foreign interference means there is only India, right? Whereas when there is an agitation against the farm bills in India, and Prime Minister Trudeau, quips in, he issues a statement, that's not foreign interference, because they have a God-given right. See, these guys' software is stuck in 1960s, where they think that they have a God-given right to lecture anyone, which is basically what the Indian English word preachify means.
Mhm.
Lecturing plus hectoring. There is two elements to preachifying. So, 9 minutes out of 12 minutes, but nobody is talking about China or CCP, I should say. Let's not include, mix the country with the government, but CCP interference in elections, that has completely disappeared. And that, I think, has happened because of two factors. One is that after the killing of Niger, Khalistanis wanted to inject that into the political discourse.
Mhm.
And on the other side, there was this desperate desire to shift the focus away from CCP. So if I want some kind of a change in direction, and you offer me a way to change that direction, I will adopt it. See, even in USA, there is that case of Nikhil Gupta, right? President Biden did not issue a statement about it, because this is something too small for a head of government to get involved with. It may be a serious case, but a head of government, who is also the head of state in USA, didn't get involved. Whereas in Canada, because there was this serious issue of CCP interference in elections, not just knocking off people in elections, so it suited Prime Minister Trudeau to make that statement. So they have changed the channel completely. Nobody is talking about CCP. When Prime Minister Carney talks about increasing trade with CCP or with China, Rosemary Barton will not ask anyone as to what happens with the foreign interference angle, right? Because they are not capable of thinking that deeply, Kushalji. These are, over the years, this has been one of my biggest disappointments in Canada. And that is the absolutely pathetic quality of so-called journalists, including, columnists and commentators. So shallow. They lack the depth to understand, deep issues or even nuanced issues. They may not necessarily be too deep, but there is a nuance and they will fail.
No, I think they're not that stupid to not know the extremism of the Khalistani movement. It's not that. I think it's just the investments of the Canadian state apparatus were, for all these years, were in one direction. Then Carney comes and says, "Main to idhar chala. I'm going here." And now, the system, they are taking time to update. And whether it's Rosemary Barton or the hilarious bit was Vasi Alepos, her interview with Dinesh Patnaik. Her facial expressions were a giveaway. It's like not even a single Canadian can answer this fundamental question that the Indian High Commissioner asked. Why does he need protection in Canada while his counterpart in India doesn't need protection?
Which any average Canadian will tell you is a more chaotic country.
Yeah. Why do you need protection? Why does the entire family of every single Indian mission member needs protection in Canada? What kind of lunatics has Canada bred? And these are Canadian lunatics. And for, them, oh, why are you bringing foreign conflicts here? Oh, bhai, this is not a foreign conflict. This is your homegrown conflict. When will the average Canadian get the memo? This is not an Indian conflict, boss. You can roam freely in Punjab.
No.
There is no problem.
The whole line of logic is not what you see. And it took me a while to catch on to this, which is that our policy is multiculturalism. And multiculturalism, a genuine one, is difficult to practice. Therefore, it devolves into multipoliticalism, which means that a person living here is living in two different political spheres, one of Canada and one of their country of origin. And then, showing support for that foreign cause gives politicians an electoral advantage. So it became part of uh, Canadian politics, right? So it is a Canadian issue, as you said, but it is also a foreign issue, because if the political class treats it as a Canadian issue, then they lose the vote grabbing ability of the issue. We will do this for you in Punjab. You are seeking a Sikh homeland in Punjab. Now, none of them will acknowledge that 2/3 of the Punjab is in Pakistan. Why does the map of Khalistan not include that? I have asked this face to face to Khalistanis. Like, the birthplace of the founder of the religion is in Pakistan, Nankana Sahib. The capital of the only Sikh kingdom to have ever existed, that of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Lahore city, is in Pakistan. How can you create a homeland for Sikhs without these two places? Nobody has an answer for that. But they don't need to provide an answer. They have thrived for 40 plus years with that logical ambiguity. Because the average Canadian politician is not interested in all those nuances. I support you in your cause. And then they will show up at a Gurdwara with that rumala on their head, the scarf. And then say, Bole so Nihal Sat Sri Akal, and they've got the votes. So it is at once a foreign issue and a Canadian issue. But in the political sphere, it's always treated as an Indian issue or a foreign issue. And even today, like every day now, you see, check out the post of Khalistanis. Not the post itself, the replies. Canadian of every hue is getting fed up. 95% of the replies will be, take this tribal war back to where you brought it from. We don't want it in our country. It's not just the Indian origin Canadians saying this. You will find Chinese, East Asian, the occasional black Canadian. Everybody is saying, take this thing out of our country. It doesn't belong here. It's a Canadian issue, therefore it will not go away. And it's a foreign issue, therefore it will keep getting them votes. This is a Schindler's issue, It is at once Canadian and foreign.
Yeah, but it says a lot about the overall quality of discourse in Canada that Pierre Poilievre has to talk about a direct flight to Amritsar. Like, kya hai yaar? And when I heard that, I was like, he's talking about direct flight to Amritsar. I was like, dude, what are you going to do with a direct flight to Amritsar? Why is that a campaign talking point? I was like, talk about trade with India. You dum-dum, you can't answer that. But you're talking about direct flights to Amritsar. Like, what is wrong with these people?
The guys who are claiming that they are oppressed and persecuted in India are demanding a direct flight to Amritsar.
Right to Amritsar. सीधा जाके oppress होऊंगा मैं उधर.
I won't stop anywhere in order to get oppressed. I'll go directly there.
How dare you stop me from getting oppressed?
The quality of political discourse here, and I include the media and academia in this, is so pathetic that nowadays, if I go on Twitter and I see a topic trending, a lot of people, including people whom I respect, have commented on that. I'm quoting my articles from years ago, saying I have written about this 3 years ago, this one 4 years ago. Nowadays, there was a report in National Post about late-term abortions, and then the issue blew up. And there is that Morgentaler verdict in the case of Dr. Morgentaler by the Supreme Court of Canada. Kushalji, believe me, 6 years ago, in October of 2019, I read that verdict and I wrote an article saying what is popularly believed about that verdict as to what it says is the exact opposite of what it actually says. The verdict says this, and what people believe what it says is the opposite. 6 years ago, I have written that article. Now we are in the seventh year. In October of 2019, I wrote that article. Now I am posting that article saying, you know what, if you are interested, read this. I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk about it anymore. See, that is the trick. Is that when you are coming to a debate with facts and logic, you are spending energy. And if the other party keeps making the same bogus argument every time, you start running out of that energy and ultimately you get exhausted and you give up, and that is how they prevail. I'll give you today's example. There is this lady called Sharon Kaur. If you hear her on radio, she pronounces her name as Sharon Carr because that sounds like a white name, Sharon Carr, Carr, Carr. She has written an article, I think it was on CTV, about immigration and all the usual tropes about immigration, why we cannot reduce immigration basically. And if you say that immigration should be reduced, then you are a racist. That is the gist of that article.
Or the response to JD Vance or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a response to JD Vance. So how often do you refute this bogus talking point or a collection of bogus talking points? There's something called Brandolini's law, which some of your viewers may not have heard of. It says that the energy required to refute bullshit is orders of magnitude greater than what went into producing that bullshit. So the other party is spending 1 unit of energy to produce BS. You are spending 10 units of energy because it is so kind of internally inconsistent that you have to break it down, and then you are spending 10 units of energy. So the ratio is already 1:10. Then they keep coming back with the same argument, and every time you are spending 10 units of energy, finally you run out of energy and you say, okay, Baba, I'm not talking about this anymore. That is what happens with almost all the issues that I have written about, including assisted dying or state of the healthcare system, or whether politicians should be allowed to block Canadians on social media. You name the topic. Years ago, I have written, and the discussion in the public arena is exactly where it was when I wrote about it. Universal basic income, you name it.
No, but to be fair to Sharon Kaur, what I think was she was trying to say was, like, I'm quoting her because I did read her article. What she was saying is, instead of addressing the real issues, decades of underbuilding, outdated zoning, slow permitting processes, lack of transit, low productivity, and archaic credential recognition, some politicians look for scapegoats. Immigrants are the easy targets. They can't fight back at scale, lack lobbyists, and blaming them absolves politicians from explaining why the homes, infrastructure, and economy Canadians need haven't been built. That's the game Poilievre's caucus is increasingly playing, a slow drip of resentment politics masquerading as economic concern. They foster narratives that treat diversity as an experiment gone wrong, turning neighbors into suspects and newcomers into threats. I think that is a very fair criticism of Poilievre's, the new turn that this
Kushalji,
party is taking.
let me tell you why this is problem.
Hmm.
First of all, she starts with talking about temporary foreign workers and then conflates that with immigrants. Secondly, low productivity is because of high immigration. This has been hammered home year in, year out for a decade at least.
Exactly.
So, if you want to address low productivity, you have to address immigration. And you cannot build your way out of this. Not building enough homes. That is basically what she's saying. not building enough homes. We are building homes to capacity. Our capacity is to build in the region of 250,000 homes a year. And in fact, in the past year, Ontario's home building has dropped by like 25% after all the big announcements. Instead of going up, it has gone down. Right? There are fundamental issues which are at least tied with immigration, if not emanating from immigration.
Yeah,
If
but
if a house is on sale and an investor comes along because he knows that he can stuff 20 tenants in, he is going to outbid everybody else. So your housing affordability cannot be de-linked from immigration. That's why I'm
no,
saying it is problem.
so I get that, but it doesn't change the reality that this is the same Conservative Party in
Yeah.
2023.
No, I'm not defending the Conservative Party.
Because see, the Liberals, okay, they messed up, they corrected their policy, simple, end of story. But from Tim Uppal standing with international students wrongly facing deportation by Liberal government,
Hmm.
in 23 they were accusing the Liberals of not deport. Why are they deporting? And here you can't say Pierre Poilievre is right there with him,
Yeah.
with
No,
Tim Uppal.
I will never defend them. I have asked, conservative MPs
From there
on
now,
paper.
Michelle Rempel has
Hmm.
taken a hardline stance where
Hmm.
she is clearly dog whistling to the worst elements inside the conservative caucus
Hmm.
or the larger support base, and it's quite obvious what they're doing. And the irony of ironies is, despite all this, the conservatives don't want to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, which is the Khalistanis. Other than one conservative MP, Shubalai Majumdar, nobody seems to even have the guts to name the Khalistanis. And Pierre Poilievre's recent statement comparing it with Quebec separatism and all of that was just downright ridiculous. That they, I mean, it was hilarious. More than ridiculous, it was hilarious that he keeps digging a bigger hole for himself, and I don't think he realizes that. I think people have not gotten the memo yet. You cannot win an election in Canada now without winning the GTA region. And you cannot win in GTA without the Indians voting for your party.
And just for
You may not
clarity,
like that reality. That is the reality.
yeah, and just for clarity, Indians is not necessarily just Hindus. There are
Yeah.
non-Khalistani Sikhs who are in that group, right?
Muslims,
Muslims,
Christians.
Christians,
India
yeah,
has Muslims, Christians, atheists, multiple kinds of people.
yeah.
Indians are a voting bloc which is now across at least 20, 22 ridings,
Hmm.
and maybe a pan Canada 25, 27 ridings.
Hmm.
So I don't know what this genius plan Michelle Rempel has come up with, and she's running with it. And now I want to talk about that change of leadership where there was a report in the Toronto Sun which said that there is a change in the campaign strategist. Jenny Byrne is going, and she's going to be replaced. Now, what do you make of this entire change? Now, there was a lot of talk about leadership change and accountability in the Conservative Party after the previous election. So, what I have understood is Steve Outhouse is in, and Jenny Byrne is out as the Conservative campaign manager. Now, how do you see this new development?
No, first of all, it's rehashing the old announcement, other than adding the name of Mr. Outhouse. Jenny Byrne had at some point declared that she would not be managing the Conservative campaign anymore, but that she would be still, handling the day-to-day activities.
How
She
does
said
that
this.
work?
Yeah, I don't know. She said this on a podcast. She went on a podcast. I'm forgetting the two names of the ladies who host that podcast, but she said that she's leaving the responsibility as campaign manager, but she'll still be in charge of all the day-to-day stuff. So, okay, if she's completely out, let's assume that she's completely away from the picture. One hopes that Mr. Outhouse will do a proper job, although he has a mixed record. In New Brunswick, he was in charge of a campaign in which the party leader lost his seat. Sound familiar? A
Okay, then
campaign
he's the
manager,
perfect replacement.
right?
अरे एकदम परफेक्ट बंदा ढूंढा है यार, आप क्या बात कर रहे हो?
Yeah, but you know, the main point is that a conservative in the Atlantic provinces is a very different voter, or a very different individual if they identify as a conservative, whether voter, politician, whatever, is a very different. There are completely different attributes to being a conservative in the Atlantic provinces versus in Ontario versus in the prairie provinces, etc. So, how effectively he can formulate strategies to attract the various different kinds of potential conservative voters remains to be seen. Now, in the past 4 elections, I have seen that the Conservative Party does not learn from its mistakes. And early on, after Prime Minister Harper's election loss in 2015, I was in discussion with one of the riding association executives in British Columbia. And he said that we stick with stuff that has worked for us before, meaning they don't try anything new. So I said, after you lose an election, how do you know what has worked? He didn't have an answer for that. And I suspect nobody has an answer even till this date, 10 years later. Right? So unless they go in for a very brutally honest introspection, then they're not going to change. They may still win based on external factors, but it will not be because they undertook an introspection. And one factor that I can see is still there is the influence of the Khalistan faction, because even this year the Diwali function was kind of not handled as it should have been. The guy organizing that is a Christian, so how do you put a Christian in charge of organizing a Diwali function? And it seemed to be a very low key affair. I got some reports, and it was a very low key affair. So they are still in their vendetta phase of the Khalistan faction, where they feel that they have won a victory by denying a celebration to Hindus. It's a very petty thing to focus on. A party should not be focusing on that, especially as a political party. You don't want to be openly hostile to any segment of the society. But that's where they are. So, I mean, between now and the next election, if they change that, then it will be good for them. But I don't see them changing.
So, how, how how are things on the anti-Indian hatred front? So let me take this. So somebody's like, there has been a rise in anti-India hatred and fake stories like the poop fest or mocking Indian food. Some seems too coordinated. How do we counter it before it sparks into real world violence? So this has been something that I've been hammering on for the longest time.
Hmm.
And now that Elon Musk has shown you guys the location, now most of these big accounts were actually Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Turkish, and all of that, and it was barely anyone that was uh, doing doing it. Besides that, I think there. I think Elon Musk and his strategy on Twitter has kind of unleashed a very low grade of commentary, and the blue tick monetization done by Elon has led to certain things. But yeah, I think there's nothing that can't be dealt with. from my perspective, I think, I mean, I will let Darshan answer for himself, but I have always said that people only respect you when you come from a position of strength. So I think the, certain organizations inside the Indian community also needs to get ready that when there are objective defamatory posts that have nothing but lies in it, there is not even an ounce of truth associated with what has been said there, then I think the community should get into action and actually, sue the pants out of a few people, and you will automatically see things falling in line. That is the only way out of it. And I just think half of the negativity stems from the idiotic behavior of the Khalistanis. And
Hmm.
if more and more people start calling it out, I think a lot of our life based issues will be solved. uh, there is I think there are a lot of us who do talk about it, like, you know when crazy people just make shit up and start, like, there is this handle, I called it out recently, I usually avoid it, but that handle is just obsessed with Indian hatred, just
Hmm.
Sammy or something, I just
Hmm.
don't know. um it just keeps peddling rubbish. And at the end of the day, I often tell these people, like, if you need a job, ask nicely.
Hmm.
That's all I can say. Like, what is this way? Is this a
No,
way to ask for a job?
Sammy is someone you can still reason with. There are a couple of times when I have told that person, I don't know if it's a he or she, but
See, that's my problem, right? You don't even have the guts to show your face.
no, a lot of people are anonymous for whatever reason. I don't go into that as long as they are not being.
It's easy to peddle hate when you're anonymous.
No, that's true. But see, for example, Pleb. He is otherwise anonymous, but you can meet him in person. I've seen him at one of the Conservative Party rallies here in Brampton. He was here, right?
Yeah, that
So
time he really liked Indian food. That
yeah,
time he needed, the conservatives
yeah,
needed the Indians vote. But
yeah.
then he realized, no, now I need clicks.
Yeah, but coming to Sammy, I've told that person a couple of times, and it has had an effect. See, there are different approaches. See, in Gujarati, we say that you don't drive everyone with the same stick. You know, I mean, this may sound offensive to the English-speaking ear, but when you are trying to get a donkey to move, you use a different stick, and when you are trying to get a horse to move, it's a very thin, what's called a crop, that kind of a stick. So you don't use the same stick for everyone. So Sammy is someone I can reason with, and I have requested a couple of times, and it has. I can see it has worked. That you don't jump into this kind of a conclusion because you have built up a reputation. And you don't want to risk it for a few clicks. But there is another part of the answer. Coming back to the question that your viewer asked, part of the answer is to take initiative, take ownership. This used to be the buzzword in management circles in the 1990s. Take ownership, and uh, it ends up sometimes calling the other person's bluff. You remember the case about Indians are throwing trash everywhere, right? And someone posted that. I said, okay, where is it? You're saying it's Brampton. Where is it? Tell me. I'll go there and clean it up. I'm in Brampton. And then that person did not reply. But someone else said it is Professor's Lake. And I went to Professor's Lake, took a video of myself saying I have brought a whole box of garbage bags with gloves. So, my hands are not affected. I went around and posted a whole thread, at every stage. There was nothing there. After that, this is my point here. After that, the whole category of Indians are throwing trash everywhere has disappeared because someone has to take ownership. Okay, if this is happening, it is bad, but I'm willing to do my part to fix it. That's taking ownership. And when you do that, occasionally you will end up calling somebody's bluff. And then the whole thing will disappear. So, see, uh, this is something out of our Puranic tales where the negative element whether it is a Rakshas or Kritika or whatever, Pishach, they will keep coming at the rishis, and the rishis will keep beating them back. It's a you don't expect the game to end. It's like, the first movie Matrix, where they can't kill him, he can't win, they can't lose, and the video game goes on. This is how I heard the first review of that movie on CNN. I still remember the last name of that reviewer because it was Clinton. And he said it's a video game. So treat this like a video game. Don't get tired. It will keep coming back at you. Every time it comes, you say, okay, this is my answer to it, but this is my solution to it. And then, that part will stop and something else will start. That's part of the game.
So here's the thing, right? There is this fashion going on social media. And believe me, a lot of these handles that I'm sharing equally involved in it, including this handle also. ये सब लोग करते हैं, मेरे को तो कुछ शर्म नहीं आती, कौन से मेरे मामे चाचे लगते हैं ये लोग. So basically there is, like I said, at the end of the day, the internet is incentivizing engagement. आप कुछ भी वीडियो डालो, somebody will come on your handle. Abhi, a lot of these handles will, this kind of handles will always say, oh, deport कर देना चाहिए. अभी इसको कहाँ deport करोगे भाई? इसको कहाँ deport करोगे? वो शक्ल का थोड़ा फर्क हो गया.
Yeah.
And a lot of these handles, they say these things like, oh, they should be deported, this should happen, that should happen. They say these things. And the problem is they're not used to pushback, articulate pushback. When you push back articulately and you say it like you see it, nobody can give a damn about any of this. And at least they don't try these stunts with me.
No, Table Salt is another handle with whom I can reason. I don't remember the exact details, but there was a time when Table Salt posted something, it was wrong, and I pointed out saying this is wrong, and I suggest that you delete it because it's going to hurt your reputation. And whoever it is deleted that post and made a new one with a better presentation, so more accurate presentation. So there are accounts with whom I can reason, and you do it nicely, they can't ignore. If you come at it emotionally, abusing or whatever, then they can ignore. But if you maintain a mature manner and composure, then they have to take it seriously. So I remember Table Salt deleted one particular post because
but that was blatant misinformation.
Yeah, it was.
So that says a lot, right? कि वो clicks के चक्कर में these people do anything. That's my whole point, right? कि अगर भाई normal काम करना, काम कर लेना, मतलब ये कोई तरीका है क्या पैसा कमाने का? दूसरों के ऊपर बारे में नफरतें फैला के. That's the whole point that I'm trying to say.
Yeah, true.
Do you think the conservatives have future under Pierre Poilievre? किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है, मैंने नहीं.
My honest opinion is no.
No.
Politics can change in a week. Even a week is eternity in politics. So you never know. But as things stand, my current assessment is no. Because he's stuck in a time warp. Even after the election and after he got re-elected in that by-election, he was still talking about Xing the tax and X the tax 2.0. That was his slogan. But we are not in 2022 anymore. When the main issue was immigration, he was talking about Xing the tax. Now that the matter has moved on from immigration to social disruption, because we are no longer talking about immigration issue as an immigration issue.
अरे immigration हो का रही है कनाडा में, कौन जा रहा है? कोई जा नहीं रहा है उधर.
It's one of the small victories that make me happy. In January 2024, when Minister Miller announced the first reduction in study permits, the new number was 365,000 for the year of 2024, which he said represented a 35% reduction over the previous year. So if you do the math, the number for previous year was 560,000.
Hmm.
The new number that has been announced with the budget is 155,000.
Which is a reasonable number.
From 560,000, there is a clear drop of 400,000.
Yeah.
Right? It's what, almost 70% drop.
Yeah, and Darshan bhai, we are seeing rental rates have started falling. Real estate has crashed. Universities are crying.
University, as you said this a long time ago, but here is something interesting. The majority, almost all of that drop is in these bogus colleges and even public
Obviously,
colleges like
I have zero sympathy for those bogus colleges.
Yeah, right. The tuition for the plaza colleges, visa mill colleges was 14,000 a year. The tuition for Conestoga was 27,000 a year. So take an average of 20,000. Multiply 400,000 by 20,000, you get $8 billion. That was fresh money coming into the Canadian economy without anyone having to work for it. It was coming from abroad.
Yeah, and 40% of it from India.
Yeah. 8 billion. Now take the velocity of money, very low ball figure of 2, which means it was adding economic activity of $16 billion. All right. Point 2. When Chrystia Freeland refused to present the fall update in December last year, and then there was all that brouhaha because the deficit was $62 billion. And the current budget's projected deficit is $78 billion. What is the difference? $16 billion. So, Prime Minister Carney, being an economist, of course knew that this economy cannot continue to function without fresh injection of money all the time until something is done to improve it. So when they stopped that 16 billion of stimulus coming from international students, they added 16 billion of stimulus in the budget. Nobody has made this connection. Deficit had to be higher at around 80 billion if they wanted the economy not to crash and burn. Because the economy unfortunately became, over the past decade, addicted to band-aid solutions and people making money without doing anything. That's what it was.
Yeah.
The real estate speculators book an apartment, a condo, with 200,000. The deal is for $1 million. By the time it's time to close, the price is 1.3 million. You have made 300,000 on investment of 200,000 in a couple of years. So your rate of return is 75% a year, doing nothing. They were not intending to occupy that condo. They were just intending to flip the booking, not the condo, the booking. Assignment sale is what it was called, or it is still called. So, the economy had gone off on a completely unproductive track where people were making big gobs of money by doing nothing. Rent seeking, grifting. That is going to take structural reforms, but you cannot risk a total collapse while you are implementing that reform. So you need to balloon the deficit. Simple. Pierre Poilievre can scream all he wants about Carney's credit card budget. It had to be this way. I am not defending it. I'm just saying that if you don't do it this way, then things crash and burn. Simple.
Yeah.
So it's one of those small victories for which I am happy, that we were able to collectively create enough public pressure to bring about some sense in one part of the policy.
The biggest sufferers were actually the Indian community because of this entire immigration shit show that was equally aided and abetted by the entire Canadian political class. And मैं तो अभी हर जगह जाता हूँ, मैं सबको बोलता हूँ भाई झुमरी तो लैया चले जाना, कनाडा मत जाना। मैं सबको यही बोलता हूँ, जिधर जाना जाओ, कनाडा मत जाओ। And in fact, now a lot of people find it very offensive. It was like, oh, what do you mean we are not good enough? I was like, यार decide कर ले। एक तरफ बोलता था मता मता मता, अभी बोलता नहीं आ तो बोलता क्यों बोल रहा है मता? अरे क्या है यार? क्या पागल लोग हैं?
People feel emotionally hurt by that statement. Don't go to Canada. But it's not.
Yesterday on Barkha Dutt's show, I said, no, Canada is a very boring country. Let it remain boring. We don't need to send any Indians.
Yeah. No, I'll give you from my personal life. One of my colleagues in Dubai. Then I moved here. He went to Africa, and then his daughter was studying at a decent university here. And then he contacted me saying, "Can you guide her? She has finished her graduation." And I talked to her, and I said, "You know what?" She said, "I want to do some postgraduate study." I said, "Choose a course which is marketable in the US. Don't stay here." Because my assessment for at least 3 years has been that this country is going to take at least one generation to dig itself out of this mess. And you're just starting out your life. You don't want to spend your entire career in a country that is caught in a quagmire. Choose a course that will make you marketable in the US, in the job market in the US. Go there. I'm saying it openly. I don't see bright prospects for young people for 30 to 40 years in this country. It's going to be a hard slog. And that will be, kind of a feedback loop. Because just today somebody, sent me data that the rate of immigrants taking citizenship has dropped. And specifically from India, it used to be 76%. Now it is 50.7%, almost 51%. It's because people, regardless of what the media says, what Rosie Barton or David Cochrane or Sharon Kaur says, people know what their lived reality is. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
They may be fooled, but they will catch on. You can cheat them, but they will catch on that they've been cheated. Then whoever has the mental wherewithal, including the resilience and the talent, will move, which makes our task of digging out of the mess even more difficult. They are leaving because it is difficult, and their leaving makes it more difficult. That is the key question to address at the political level, but nobody is talking about it. When I remember in January 2023, when the US tech sector was doing mass layoffs, 50,000 here and 30,000 there, and like a few 100,000 highly talented IT professionals were suddenly out of a job. And then the Canadian government announced a digital nomad strategy. They are good at this. And anywhere there is some kind of a disruption, their first reaction is to bring those people over to Canada. If there is civil war in Sudan, bring them to Canada. If there are mass layoffs in the IT sector in the US, bring them to Canada. That is the only, default reaction that they have to anything. Then, a couple of months ago, I checked with someone who knows about this. I said, what happened with the digital nomad strategy? And they told me that it was nothing more than a glorified visit visa. So, because I tried to dig up data on this and there was no data. I said, why can't I get any data? They said, no, you won't, because it's just a visit visa. Right? So now with Trump going after H-1B, they've launched another strategy to bring, all those people who have been, whose H-1B is not being renewed, they will come to Canada. It's not going, that is not how you build the strength, the intellectual strength, or at least the technological strength of the country, by giving people a temporary stopover place. Because the moment the US opens up, they'll go back. They're not going to stick around here with, first of all, your currency is 40% lower. Then the pay is 30% lower in a currency that is 40% lower. Your taxes are higher. Your cost of living is higher. Housing is nosebleed levels. They will stick around. If they come here at all, they will stick around only to bide their time. The moment US opens up, they'll go back. You don't build long term strength based on these knee jerk reactions. So, I mean, Mr. Carney has his job cut out for him. I don't envy him. But, in terms of trade, at least he's making all the right moves. On immigration, I don't think there is institutional capacity to even think right. Forget making the right moves. But on trade,
No, I
at
think
least,
as far as immigration is concerned, the numbers will reduce naturally is because Canada becomes less of an attractive destination. So the job is done anyway.
yeah, on immigration it is done. But then, what happens is, uh, if you are familiar with astrophysics, what happens is when an object which is traveling in space comes in proximity to a larger object which has a greater gravity, it loses speed. The first object loses speed. But when light comes in proximity to that same larger object, it cannot lose speed because the speed of light is constant. So it loses energy. So on the spectrum, from I think violet to red, I'm forgetting. But from the spectrum, red is the least intensity of heat. So it moves the light, the color of the light moves along the spectrum towards the red. It's known as red shift. So what happens is when your economic condition is in dire straits as a country, the incoming cohort of immigrants will not reduce in quantum to the extent that you have maintained the quotas. You will get them, but there will be a red shift. People who can pull you out of that economic quagmire will not be coming here. You will get people, but not the ones who can pull you out.
So let's take a few. Beyond the leaders, are the conservative supporters concerned about the direction of the movement and disproportionate influence of a particular ideology? Is there any chance for course correction? No, not under the current leader in this conservative party. I'm saying it straight,
Yeah, I agree.
not under Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
This is how it is. Because of Pierre Poilievre and his woke Khalistani MPs and some racist influencers, I may end up voting for Carney despite the fact I was against Justin left Liberal government for 10 years. When will the CPC realize that's how you lose votes? You're not the first Canadian. You're not the last Canadian. A lot of members of our community are going back to the Liberals in hordes. In hordes!
Hmm.
And this
Not,
does
not just the Indian origin community, a lot of the others also, because I interact with them regularly on a daily basis. And they say that we have to hold our nose and go back there.
there will be a large going back to the liberal
Hmm.
from the Indian community. Definitely it's happening whether people like it or not, and the entire online racist rhetoric and conservative party affiliated media influencers,
Hmm.
especially the ones that are directly running parallel to the conservative party in terms of funding patterns,
Hmm.
they have played a giant role
Hmm.
in turning people away from the conservative party.
Yeah.
But the one community that is actually naturally conservative is the Indian community. They are actually naturally conservative people, but they will vote liberal because of all these dum-dums that are there who keep making these unnecessary comments. And you know what annoys the Indian community even more is that सालो तुम लोगों को खालिस्तानी शब्द बोलने में तो तुम्हारी फटती है. You think Indians are that stupid that your cowardly act of not even being in a position to name Khalistan openly is not seen? With the liberal, they know, na. They know what they're getting.
Yeah, there is, with liberals, there is truth in advertising. You know what they are, who they are, what they are,
At least,
and what you're getting.
and see, you know what you're getting with the liberals. With the other lot, though, you don't even understand what's happening. So no, you will
No.
see a lot of people, and also the online atmosphere in the United States of America will also have a role to play in it because of the groypers and the groyperism of the internet in general in North America and the Western world, where in America, though it has come to a point where, oh my God, like Vivek Ramaswamy, every time he posts something, there is just a tsunami of hatred below. It's just now it's reaching ridiculous levels, and there should be no problem in admitting that, at least in America, what I have been talking to a lot of community members, and a lot of them are going back to the Democrats, and best of luck to the Republican Party. And similar, the spillover effect is going to happen in Canada, whether people like it or not. It's going to happen in Canada, the Indian community, and best of luck, they are not going to win. Liberals are staying in power because if the Indians vote for them, khatam, bhul jao tum log. Bhul jao. Because literally GTA decides the fate of the polity of the country.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, Alberta referendum. They'll start with that nonsense. It's like, मैं नहीं बात करता तेरे से. After losing or something, they'll say, नहीं मैं नहीं बात करता तेरे से. So and they'll be like, हाँ इसको बोलने दो थोड़े दिन के लिए.
Yeah.
आगे बढ़ो.
Yeah.
So it's like that. There is no introspection, no soul searching. Like, who is the version of, गोरे लोगों की राखी, Michelle Rempel, मेरे करण अर्जुन आएंगे. अरे यार, she's so irritating. Yeah, we are going to win. What's about के बोलती है.
Good morning, we are going to win. Every day.
It's so irritating.
I asked her, can you please explain why every single MP of your party voted for M44? She didn't reply.
Block नहीं किया अभी तक आपको.
No.
It's just stupid, man. Like, क्या कर रहे हो आप लोग यार? It's
like
anyway.
M44 is where the whole mass immigration began. You have to at least own up.
No, वो नहीं करेंगे ना. अरे वो छोड़ो यार, टिम उप्पल यार डिपोर्टेशंस के अगेंस्ट उसको पियर पॉलियो को खड़ा कर रहा है यार. ये लोग क्या, मतलब कोई शर्म आती है कि नहीं इन लोगों को? 454 की शर्म नहीं है इनमें.
The thing is that at that point, the whole mess, they were not even aware. I mean, I'm not talking about Team Uppal, but I'm talking about Pierre Poilievre, and the party itself. They were completely unaware of what is going on. There was this press conference in the summer of 2023 at Saidam Food Bank in Etobicoke. And one of the, media there, it was all Desi media. And one of them asked about the sale of LMIA. And from Pierre's answer, I knew that he has absolutely no clue as to what the question is. Because he didn't know what LMIA is. He didn't know that they are being sold, that it is illegal, etc., etc. So he kind of gave a, roundabout word salad. But so by the time, those were the 700 international students from India, mainly from Punjab, who had been sent to Canada on a fake admission letter. The whole scope of the scam, nobody had even scratched the surface. They were not even aware that it existed. Forget scratching the surface. So he stood there and said, we'll stop the deportations and this and that. Everything that a politician says, reminds me of the time when a politician was invited to a opening ceremony of an institution and he didn't know what it was. So he said, I pray to God that this institution grows by leaps and bounds and all the young people of the town should contribute heartily to its growth. Turns out it was an orphanage. You don't want an orphanage to grow by leaps and bounds.
वो you remember that scene in a Hindi cinema? वो अंग्रेज तानाशाही नहीं चलेगी. अरे
Yeah.
तानाशाही अंग्रेजों भारत छोड़ो. अरे अरे मगर क्यों?
Yeah.
So a lot of and just to give people perspective, if you are a Canadian and you're watching this, and you have heard of the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, 5,000, about how India has weaponized the Lawrence Bishnoi gang.
Hmm.
This is just a major terror plot that was foiled yesterday. 4 operatives of Lawrence Bishnoi gang held after exchange of fire. 7 pistols recovered in Chandigarh. So, it's not like India doesn't act. This was reported in Indian media by an Indian media representative. Obviously, Canada considers this all a gross foreign interference in Canadian affairs, because Lawrence Bishnoi gang is the pride of Canada, apparently. So,
No, they are treating Lawrence Bishnoi gang as a proxy of Indian government, because the Khalistanis told them that, right? Mainly the mainstream media, right? One of the disturbing parts of Canadian public sphere is that once a factually or logically faulty statement gets injected, no amount of reputation suffices to make it go away. So even 40 years after today's date, there will be a large section of Canadians who will believe that Lawrence Bishnoi gang was a proxy of Indian government. You're not going to change that. You're
no,
again
that's fine.
against Brandolini's law.
No, that is fine. At the end of the day, after all, people need to realize that Canada also has its fair share of conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah. So that's okay. Anyways, we'll wrap it up, Darshan bhai. I know it's getting late there in Canada. So to everyone, keep, I was just not doing that all that well since I came here. Now I'm going to start doing the regular Canadian discussions also, which is in the morning time in India and the evening in Canada. Once in a while we'll do it. I wanted to start it with, so I've done 2 now, one with Samir Kaushal, now with Darshan, and I'm going to get more and more and more Canadians now back on the podcast. It's just that I'm trying to become more streamlined and regularized. But go follow Darshan Maharaja on X, and as far as the Cārvāka podcast is concerned and this series is concerned, the entire videos are all there in the Canada playlist on my YouTube channel. And if you are in Canada and you want to send your donations, the Interac email ID is kushalmehra81@gmail.com. UPI for India is kushalmehra@ICICI. And if you want to support, you can also join the membership program on YouTube or on Patreon. And always remember, if you can't do any of that, just like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and if you are an audio listener, leave a rating on your preferred platform. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.